Issues between daughters-in-law and mothers-in-law often arise due to the latter being tough on the former. However, there are also cases where the mother-in-law is kind and the daughter-in-law is harsh. My name is Cindy. I am a typical woman in her early 40s, concerned about my skin's dryness lately and unsure about which skincare products to choose. I just celebrated my 15th wedding anniversary with my husband, David. While we have our minor misunderstandings, we maintain a peaceful relationship without any significant conflicts. Our daughter, Samantha, will start middle school this fall and is enthusiastic about club activities. She is going through a rebellious phase, using rough language, and often locks herself in her room. However, I understand that she is fundamentally kind-hearted and considerate of others, so my husband and I quietly support her. Our son, Rick, is 9 years old and loves video games. He was often sick in his early years, but now he is healthy enough to go to school in short sleeves even in winter. In this ordinary family, I feel reasonably happy with my life. However, now that the children are less dependent, I increased my part-time work, which unexpectedly drained my energy, leading to more quick and easy meals, though it's just a minor concern for me. That's about the extent of my worries. My parents live far away, but my husband's parents are just a 20-minute drive away. Since having children, I have often relied on my in-laws. My father-in-law was a man of old-fashioned strictness, but he was incredibly sweet to his grandchildren, always preparing lots of sweets for them. My mother-in-law, who lived with such a husband, is calm yet efficient with household chores, always busy and smiling. Therefore, I never felt hesitant about visiting my in-laws' house, and I was genuinely grateful for how they warmly welcomed our children. This life continued until my father-in-law passed away 3 years ago. The funeral was somber yet calm, following a 2-year battle with illness. However, my mother-in-law and my husband were deeply saddened, so I did my best to support them. The question arose about who would take care of my mother-in-law. My husband's brother, Kevin, and his wife, Emma, stepped forward. They agreed to inherit the family home as part of the arrangement. Emma, who is passionate about education, wanted to live in the conveniently located family home to enroll their 10-year-old daughter, Mia, in a private middle school. Although my mother-in-law is a kind person, I was honestly worried about the stress that might build up from a daughter-in-law and mother-in-law living under the same roof. However, the decision had already been made between my husband and his brother, so I had no say in the matter. After the memorial service, Kevin's family and my mother-in-law started their life together in the family home. However, my concerns came true. 3 years later, the relationship between my mother-in-law and Emma had significantly deteriorated. "Mother, I've brought some apples sent from my parents' home." "Oh, thank you. You went out of your way to bring them." In the deepening autumn, when my husband and I visited the family home, I handed a paper bag filled with apples to my mother-in-law at the entrance. She peeked into the bag with a smile. "Oh, what a fresh, pleasant fragrance. I look forward to this every year. I must call your mother to thank her. I'm also grateful. My mother really enjoys the oranges she receives from you." "Haha, hearing that makes me happy to send them," my mother-in-law said, covering her mouth with her hand as she laughed elegantly. I can't manage such a refined laugh. I tend to laugh out loud and clap my hands, always admiring my mother-in-law's demeanor. The children have grown, and between part-time work and household chores, it had been since Christmas that I last saw my mother-in-law. I want to share more about the children's progress and other news, but someone stands in the way. "Excuse me, Mother. It's troublesome for the neighbors if we chat at the entrance. Please wrap it up. Cindy, once you're done with your errands, please head back soon." It was my sister-in-law, Emma, peeking out from the living room door, her brows furrowed, clearly showing her displeasure. "Understood? I'm sorry, Cindy, I'll gladly accept the apples. No problem." My mother-in-law responded in a low, apologetic voice and closed the door. I couldn't say anything and just watched the door close. "Emma's always so cold to your mother. It hurts to watch." I know, right? That night, when I vented about the day's events, my husband gave a wry smile and sighed. In fact, that afternoon's incident wasn't anything special. For the first 6 months after moving in with my brother-in-law's family, there were no conflicts between my mother-in-law and her daughter-in-law because the latter was reserved. However, as my niece Mia entered her final year of elementary school and started preparing for exams, the way Emma and Mia treated my mother-in-law gradually became harsher. Occasionally, Mia would lash out at her grandmother, possibly due to stress. My brother-in-law turned a blind eye to the situation, citing his busy schedule as he piled up overtime and weekend work. This fall, when Mia was accepted into her first-choice middle school, I hoped that my sister-in-law's stress would decrease. However, after she no longer needed to drive Mia to cram school, it seems her treatment of my mother-in-law has become even more dismissive. Your mother is kind-hearted, so living together might be bothersome at times, but such treatment is too much. Indeed. My husband becomes more reticent than usual when the topic of his family home comes up. Even if there are benefits for my brother-in-law and his wife, it's difficult for my husband to criticize them since he is in the position of having received their help. Indeed, I'm worried about my mother-in-law's situation, but if we intervene, it might worsen her position. So, whenever the topic of the family home comes up, we just end up sighing. However, the situation changed suddenly. Well, it might have been according to my brother-in-law's plans. One weekend, he visited our house, saying he had something to discuss. Although I had a bad feeling, I welcomed him into the living room, leaving the children in their room. As I tried to leave the room, my brother-in-law asked me to stay, and I ended up being part of the conversation. He looked serious and seemed about to start a heavy conversation. You've seen that my wife and mom aren't getting along well, right? Yes, it seems so. We have, yes. My husband and I gave vague responses. It didn't seem like they were directly at odds, but it appeared that my sister-in-law was unilaterally harsh on my mother-in-law. My brother-in-law, seemingly satisfied with our responses, nodded exaggeratedly. That's because my wife is under a lot of stress. Really? Is that so? But in reality, it seems like my mother-in-law is the one who's more troubled, I muttered to myself. As her husband, I have to prioritize my wife's well-being. Of course, that's certainly noble. Protecting one's wife is a husband's duty, after all. But it seems like he's been avoiding this issue until now. So, I've decided that it's best for Mom to move out. What? What do you mean? We exclaimed in surprise at my brother-in-law's unexpected words. Does he mean kicking her out of the house? Not for you them to move out? That's unbelievable. Why does Mom have to leave? Even my usually calm husband raised his voice in anger. Despite his reaction, my brother-in-law was determined to push through with his plan. Because my wife says she can't live with her anymore and has been crying about it. Then you guys should be the ones to move out. We can't afford that. Do you know how much it costs to send a child to a private school? Private school tuition is naturally expensive. That was part of your calculations when you decided to send her there, right? Yes, but my wife insists that without a private school, our daughter won't get into a good university. That's your problem. It's no reason to kick Mom out of the house. I couldn't believe how unprepared this couple was. While my husband was fuming, I was just shocked. Yet, my brother-in-law made an even more shocking statement. The thing is, the house is actually in my name. At those words, the already tense atmosphere in the room froze over. That was under the condition that you would take care of Mom, wasn't it? My husband asked with a trembling voice. My brother-in-law replied with a smug look, as if he had an ace up his sleeve. That's true, but situations change. Ideals and reality differ. Why are you talking about it as if it doesn't concern you? It can't be helped. My wife likes the house and doesn't want to leave. We need money to get our daughter into a good university. So, he had a plan all along. From the start of their cohabitation, he planned to sever ties with his mother. And it seems my sister-in-law had been plotting to exclude her from the beginning. I can't forgive this, I said, full of contempt toward my brother-in-law. He smirked unnaturally, looking down on me with a cold gaze. David and Cindy, if you live with her, you would understand. But don't worry, we won't impose mom on you. However, we would like some help with finding her an apartment and moving. After my malicious brother-in-law left, our house was engulfed in silence. Noticing the change in atmosphere, our children helped with the dishes and shared their chocolate, showing their care. While grateful for their kindness, I continued to worry about my mother-in-law's future. 3 days later, my husband apologized to me for the first time in our lives. I knew why, of course. We've been together for many years. Cindy, I have a difficult request. Okay. I want to take mom in here. I understand. I think what my brother did was terrible, but it's hard to understand everything from the outside. There might be some issue with mom as well. Even if that's the case, we can't just abandon her after she's been discarded like this. I'll spare no effort to support her. So, you just said you'd spare no effort, right? Huh. When I questioned him, my husband gave me a slightly worried expression. Will you do anything? Yes, anything. For a lifetime, for a lifetime. He answered with a bit of hesitation, revealing his sincerity. David, making impossible promises will make us no different from your brother. I'm sorry. I hadn't thought that far. Let's promise only what we can actually do. Together with your mother. I smiled encouragingly, and my husband thanked me repeatedly in gratitude. Cindy, thank you. I'm truly grateful. I've received a lot of help from your mother, too. Now it's our turn to support her. There are no guarantees of success, but I cared about my mother-in-law too much to ignore her plight, especially when she was going to be kicked out of her own house. A month after making our decision, my husband and I went to pick up my mother-in-law. You're admirable. But remember, you won't get any direct return for your efforts for her. The words whispered in my ear by my sister-in-law as she left are unlikely to ever be forgotten. When my mother-in-law arrived at our house and hesitated at the entrance, her small figure seemed even more diminished. I was overwhelmed with the urge to offer her comforting words. However, for us to live peacefully in the long term, temporary kindness was not enough. Mother, there's no rush to unpack. Let's have some coffee in the living room first. Then we can have a family meeting. A family meeting. We'll establish the rules for living together from now on. Indeed, upon welcoming my mother-in-law, I resolved to establish family rules. The decision wasn't mine alone, but was to be agreed upon by the entire family. It was crucial not just to list demands but to find compromises. Though I expected some initial reluctance, everyone was surprisingly receptive to the idea of having their wishes possibly fulfilled. No entering rooms without permission. This request from my daughter was approved with the condition, in return, you'll clean your own room. Don't eat food labeled with someone's name. My proposal prompted a sheepish grin from my husband, who had once eaten my pudding without asking. Limit gaming time to 10 hours a day. My son's excessive demand was immediately rejected with the question, when would you sleep if you played that much? Then, we encouraged my mother-in-law to make a suggestion. She said in a small voice, how about I prepare breakfast on weekends and we all eat together? This simple wish was unanimously approved by the family. After setting a few more rules, our joint living arrangement with my mother-in-law began. Though I initially harbored some anxiety, it quickly became apparent that my concerns were unfounded. It seems that our home and my mother-in-law were very compatible. She was like a domestic genius. Returning from work, I'd find the house spotless and the laundry perfectly folded. Just helping with the dinner she had prepared during the day was enough to quickly enjoy a delicious meal. The planter, once overrun with weeds, now bloomed with beautiful cockscomb flowers. Her efficiency and elegance seemed almost magical. Mother, are you like a magician? Even to such a slightly silly question, she would reply charmingly with a smile, it's a secret. The anticipated interpersonal issues never materialized. In fact, our household became much more harmonious than before. Listening carefully to the children's opinions while setting the family rules seemed to have paid off. I began to understand what was bothering my teenage daughter, and my playful son learned the importance of rules. Every 3 months, or when we couldn't bear a particular grievance, we'd hold a special meeting to discuss matters seriously as a family. When my husband and I occasionally spoke too much, my mother-in-law would gently interject, which was immensely helpful. As a result, understanding among family members deepened compared to before my mother-in-law joined us. Especially her suggestion, "Let's have breakfast together on weekends," greatly strengthened our family bond. She would go to great lengths for these breakfasts, making stock from scratch or baking homemade bread. The children, who were hard to rouse on weekends, started waking up early thanks to this rule and the promise of a delicious meal. Eventually, my daughter began to join in baking the bread, and my son started early morning runs with my husband. This led to more family breakfasts on weekdays, increasing our conversations with the children. There were many other changes, but living with my mother-in-law has been a significant positive for our family. While there are still moments of awkwardness and differing values, the space to slowly work through them has brought a sense of ease. Since my mother-in-law moved in, our home has felt more peaceful, but it seems things have not been going well in my brother-in-law's family. Initially, my sister-in-law seemed happy with my mother-in-law gone, and I heard my brother-in-law started coming straight home after work. However, the situation drastically changed after a few months. In particular, the educational and commuting expenses for their daughter became a significant burden on their finances. My brother-in-law's wife reluctantly started a part-time job, but she struggled due to her long absence from the workforce. Their relatively large home with a spacious yard required considerable effort to maintain. Busy with her part-time job, my brother-in-law's wife couldn't keep up with the housework, resulting in both the interior and exterior becoming neglected. Parallel to the home's disarray, their daughter also began to show signs of emotional turmoil. Originally, Mia didn't want to take the middle school entrance exams, but she complied with her mother's strong insistence and passed. While she is a bright child, commuting an hour each way and studying at a school where she had no friends was an extremely distressing experience for her. She eventually realized the warmth of her grandmother, who cared for her physical well-being and prepared late-night snacks, as opposed to the constant criticism over academic performance or lack of study from a mother who obeyed everything her father said. It's part of growing up, though she might think she should have realized it sooner. As a result, Mia began to resent her parents for ousting her grandmother and became cold toward them. My brother-in-law and his wife were troubled by this situation. That's why I was thinking of asking Mom to come back. I was astounded by my brother-in-law's request, relayed to us like a game of telephone amidst his family's dire situation and his wife's unrealistic demands. "What do you mean?" My husband's expression, beyond anger, was like an emotionless mask. I probably had the same expression. After all, our family is struggling. If this continues, my wife won't be able to keep her job and will be unable to pay the school fees. But wasn't it you who took the house away from Mom for that very reason? Then why doesn't you help with the housework? No, I'm too busy for that. Really? Too busy to even pay the rent, yet always complaining about financial difficulties? Despite using work as an excuse to neglect his family, he always seemed to be in financial trouble. I wondered, but then recalled my brother-in-law's wife flaunting her expensive bags and heading to the beauty salon. It felt like he was trying to buy favor with money. What a foolish act. Our conversation at the entrance grew louder, prompting my mother-in-law to peek from the living room. We had told her to stay hidden, but she must have been curious about being the subject of discussion. "David, you." My mother-in-law's expression was also blank, but my brother-in-law happily addressed her. "Mom, you heard, right? You must want to return to Dad's place, right?" My wife seems to be reflecting, so please forgive her. Where is your wife? So she doesn't intend to apologize as a wife but wants a servant to work for them. Are this couple only thinking of relying on others, being so self-centered? I will not return, nor will I lend any money. Mom. My brother-in-law was clearly shaken by her cold response. We were taken aback by his simplistic expectation of a positive answer from my mother-in-law. But aren't you worried about Mia? She's feeling lonely without her grandmother, not smiling as much as before. If things continue, she might have to leave the school she worked hard to get into. That's something you, as parents, should support. Mia's current suffering is the result of your thoughtless actions. But still, moreover, using your own child to make demands is unacceptable. My brother-in-law seemed to realize he couldn't counter such logical objections. Not that my mother-in-law abandoned them, but rather they were abandoned by her. Please leave now. Neither I nor Mia are tools for you to manipulate at your convenience. With a firm rejection from my mother-in-law, who had always showed motherly warmth, my brother-in-law dejectedly left the house. Upon returning to the living room, 3 anxious children were waiting. Samantha, Lick, and Mia, my brother-in-law's daughter. Grandma, I'm sorry. It's because of Dad and Mom. Mia said that with a near-tearful face, to which my mother-in-law responded with a gentle smile while holding her hand. It's not your fault, Mia. You have already apologized to Grandma, haven't you? Let's continue baking the cookies. My daughters returned to preparing the cookies, gently patting Mia's back in support. Indeed, a few months ago, Mia had traveled by multiple trains to our house to apologize directly to my mother-in-law. Despite trembling legs and voice, Mia's sincere apology, spoken in her own words, was truly commendable, showing more maturity than her own parents. My mother-in-law warmly accepted her apology, and since then, Mia occasionally visited our house to help her grandmother. Thus, Mia is not someone to be manipulated for adult convenience. The thought of serves them right crosses my mind, but I am still far from being as graceful as my mother-in-law. And now, 10 years later, my daughter is enjoying her life as a working adult, and my son as a university student. Though not on paths of extraordinary success or fame, they are both following their chosen paths and putting in the effort needed. That is a source of pride for me as a parent. Mia, my brother-in-law's daughter, progressed through high school but then chose a path against her parents' strong opposition, attending a vocational school. Through her life with my mother-in-law, she found what she truly wanted to pursue. Supporting herself with part-time work and scholarships, she graduated and got a job in a distant company. After high school, there should have been no further education costs for my brother-in-law's child, but their financial situation seemed strained. The unexpected direction of their daughter's growth became a significant stress factor for my brother-in-law's wife, who repeatedly sought stress relief through shopping while neglecting housework. The once clean home maintained by my mother-in-law is now cluttered to the point of spilling outside, causing them to be distanced by neighbors. My brother-in-law and his wife often seek help from my mother-in-law and us, but we have never accepted their request. My brother-in-law's wife never visits directly, only sending my brother-in-law as the messenger. The seeds they sowed must be harvested by themselves. Now that the children are independent, my mother-in-law and I maintain a pleasant distance while enjoying our lives. My husband cherishes me deeply, and even after celebrating our silver wedding anniversary, he never forgets his devotion to me. From the outside, our days might seem ordinary, but our family is content, and I feel